District 6, stepping in for the mayor and Alderman Strelchak, who couldn't be here tonight. So bear with me as I try to go through the formalities. We have a packed agenda with some great developments up here. Want to thank the Planning Commission members for being here tonight. We just barely hit quorum, so thank them for taking time out of their busy schedules. Just a formality, if any of you are here to speak on any items on the agenda, if you would kindly pick up one of the cards in the back of the room and then submit it to Robin, who's up here at the front, and then we'll know to properly address you. And we'll also call, if anyone has anything to say throughout the public hearings, you'll be able to step up to the mic and you'll want to say your name and address. So with the formalities out of the way, we're going to have Robin call the roll.
Okay. Commissioner Urbani?
Here.
Commissioner Barnes?
Here.
Commissioner Chorin?
Here.
Commissioner Stoker? Here. Alderman Parrish?
Here. Thank
Commissioners Hawley and Schaefer are absent. Thank you.
Great, thank you. At this time, we're going to go to the consent agenda. Oh, did I not do the minutes? Nope. The meeting minutes, thank you, from February 24th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes accepted. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. I'm assuming no one wants to discuss this further, or if you would make a different motion than you would otherwise to accept the consent agenda.
I move we accept the agenda, or accept.
Great, there's a motion by Commissioner Barnes.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Urbani. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Consent agenda is accepted. At this time, we're going to go in and out of public hearings for each of the next items. There's 6 items. Some great developments. We're going to do first Sergio Rodriguez, SER RZ3 LLC. The applicant is seeking, feel free to step up to the table. The applicant is seeking conditional use grant and building and site plan amendment approval to allow for a restaurant for the property located at 10352 Northport Washington Road, formerly Sobelman's. Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. We are now in public hearing. Did no one registered to speak in that short time? Just a reminder to fill out a card, please, and for any of these items, and you can get them to Robin up front. But if, again, if you wanted to say anything now, you could for any of these items. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second, and all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. The public hearing is closed. This time we'll have a staff report and then hear any comments from the applicant, and then we'll bring it back up here. Thank you.
Sure, this is a conditional use grant building site plan approval for the restaurant on Port Washington Road. This was in front of the commission back in July of 2024. It was tabled at that point. There was concerns. The old design showed a stucco improvement with the removal of the porch on the front of the building. Since this time, we've met with the architect, our staff architect and their architect, and staff met out at the site in December. We kind of went over all the different options for the building. What I have up on the screen is kind of what we all kind of agreed upon. So they're going to keep the look of the existing building by replacing the clapboard siding with a LP Smart Side product. It's a light gray with a ivory trim, and then there's some red accent materials. It looks a little darker on the screen than what it does appear in the packet, but there's light red on the top, and then the scallops that are referenced in the material are shown on the peak of the building. They did keep the front porch. They're going to replace all the rotted wood on the porch and then match the existing trim as much as possible. I did confirm that the reveals on the siding will match what's out on the building as currently exists today. So we're supportive of all the changes that were made. In terms of the restaurant itself, typical to our restaurants on Port Washington Road, hours of operation between 11 and 9:30 p.m. The parking lot has 56 spaces, which exceeds the code requirement of 45 based on the size of the restaurant. In terms of landscaping, there's a comment in there that they would come back and clean up the site, which we agree with, but since neither the applicant or our staff understands the condition of that existing landscaping until it gets a little warmer out, we deferred that action until later in the season, where we can get an updated plan based on the conditions of the existing and the proposed. So we're asking for a landscaping plan to be brought back to us sometime later on this summer. The site plan, the only changes they're making, they're showing the parking lot being resealed. There are some potholes and some cracking in there. We'd like to see that repaired as well. And then they're also showing a future outdoor patio on the south portion of the site. There's no other plans with that, but when they do decide to come forward with this plan, patio, we'll need to see a full plan for that as well. As many of you may know, we had some compliance action against this site. We deferred action on that based on getting these repairs done with the building. So we've given until July 31st of 2025 to replace the building's windows, siding, and trim. September 1st of 2025 for the parking lot, and then October 15th for the installation of landscaping. Now, of course, if they get this done earlier and they want to open earlier, we're amenable to that as well. So with that, we do recommend approval of the conditional use grant and the building and site plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zader, and then we'll turn it over to the applicant, Mr. Rodriguez and his associate. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
the
awesome.
green light
Tom
is on.
Mequon, architect, 13 East First Street, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, 54935, and Sergio Rodriguez is here with me, obviously. Everything that was mentioned is what we've agreed to. Obviously, landscaping is pretty dense around the property. Again, a lot of it is matured out. We'll see how it comes back. We know that we'd like to accent the building as it was prior. It's all overgrown, and want to clean it up, so to speak, as we redo the siding. We want to match the building, if you will, historic value of it, because we know that's very key to this region and key to Mequon. The colors are back and forth. We've discussed it numerous times, so we think we've come up with a good scheme for it. Unfortunately, what you see there you can't see too well, but I think it does the building justice of what we've come up with. So we're open to any questions that the board or commission might have at this time, unless you want to add anything. You're good? Okay.
Thank you. We'll bring it back up here. Commissioner Barnes.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. It would be to the south side of the building. Right now, we don't know physically if it will actually work. Right now, I think that we have to get delineated where that south property line actually is. If it's within 6-8 feet, it won't work. So that is a real tentative thing. If we feel that it can physically work, and we'll come back necessarily through the proper procedures to put that on and what that would be. So it is a required exit at that location, so we would have a door going out from that seating area on the inside. So as Sergio and I originally looked at it, we were going to put it to the street side or to the Port Washington Road side. But again, that's the traffic and the volume and the noise just didn't make sense there. So we'll look at that at a future date once we get that south property line denoted. So. No, it's really, right now, it's real tentative at best. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. And then I know Commissioner Chorn actually met on site with the applicant. Thank you, Commissioner Chorn, for doing that. And we'd love to hear your feedback.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for meeting out there. My recollection, it was extremely cold, and maybe that's why we came to decisions quickly.
It was
But
very cold,
I
yes.
think what you've come up with is good. You know, it reflects, I think, what you were looking for, and I want to thank you for that, and look forward to it being approved by everybody here.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Urbani?
Yes, thank you for this update. I love the new scheme. I think it looks great. I look forward to going there. I'm also very glad that you're keeping that front door and the porch entryway, which I think is the Port Washington design corridor, or it is somewhere else. We have to have that entryway off the sidewalk, so it kind of matches some of the things we have going on elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it really is important to the old building. I just hope that the road doesn't get any wider at that location. Because you literally do step off the steps onto the sidewalk, and then another step you're past the curb. So, but that's neither here nor there, obviously, because of the volume of traffic. But yeah, to the integrity of the building, I think it's key to keep. So, thank you.
Yeah, it's a very complicated site. It essentially goes into the roadway, so you did a great job with the design. It's one of the most frequent comments I hear is, when is the restaurant going to be open? So I think you're going to be very successful, and we welcome you to the community. With that said,
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, none opposed, no additional comments.
Thank you so
are
much.
approved. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have Kids Rule Academy. The applicant is seeking conditional use grant and building and site plan amendment approval to call for a childcare facility for the property located at 12308 North Corporate Parkway. Do we have a motion for the public hearing?
So move for,
All right, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are none opposed. We are now in public hearing. Is anyone registered to speak, or anyone would like to speak that did not register? Seeing none,
close.
we have a motion and a second by Commissioner Stoker and Chorin. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. No further discussion. We are now out of public hearing, and we will turn it over to staff and Jack for this one.
Yes, this is a daycare facility located in our corporate center. This is a multi-tenant building, and I have it up on the screen. The location of the tenant space is basically a 12,000 square foot tenant space for the indoor area, and then there's about a 4,400 square foot area for the outdoor. In terms of the use, it's consistent with most of our other daycares. They're licensed for about 100 children. Their hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. No issues with the conditional use grant. There was one thing we did find when doing some research on this project that I did put in the packet. At one point, and this was done by a different owner, I was make sure I'll let you know that it wasn't done by the current owner, but the previous owner expanded the parking lot in the rear. As you can see, this is a 2010 photo, and if you look at the 2015, they added all these spaces in the back and they encroached into the parking setback. So I let the applicant know that was an issue. And our resolution to this issue would be to remove those spaces and then just keep the asphalt as a driveway, but remove the spaces from the total parking count, which drops us down to 104 spaces, which was originally approved when this building was constructed. Now, technically, they're short 2 spaces, but staff is not concerned about those 2 spaces because the daycare operations obviously are going to have a pretty peak demand in the morning and in the afternoon for drop-offs and pickups. So I think there'll be plenty of spaces available for the rest of the tenants in the building to utilize. The only other thing I found when I did a site compliance visit was there's a number of ash trees that were planted that were dead. Some were actually being taken down when I was out there, mostly up in this area, up here in the north west corner, and then down here in the southeast corner. So we're just asking for those to be replaced sometime by fall in order to maintain our landscaping plan that was originally approved. There were some that were taken down on the east side of the building, but there was land taken away for the I-43 project. We won't make them replace those because I think there's a partial sound wall there, and there was some modifications done to that area, so we won't require them to replace those trees, but just basically in this front area here and then back in the corner here. So other than that, it's pretty straightforward. I think we're supportive of the use. We recommend approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zader. We'll turn it over to our guests. If you could each say your name and who you're
My name is Alex Mazur. I'm the owner of Kids Rule Academy.
My
My name is John Worth. I represent East Mequon Corporate Center 3 LLC, the owner of the building.
Thank you. Welcome. We're all glad an existing business found a new location and look forward to hearing more about it. Any questions about the staff write-up?
Again, Alex Mazur, owner of Kids Roll Academy. I've been a Mequon Thiensville resident for the last 33 years. Been operating childcare at 2909 West Mequon Road currently for the last 12 years and serving the community. We currently enroll 100 families and employ 17 full-time teachers. And we're now looking to move into a better location in the larger space to improve our operations.
Thank you. Are you okay with all the conditions in the packet?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. We'll bring it back up here for the commission. Commissioner Chorin.
I'm curious, as the drop-off and pickup, I don't know where the entrance is and how that's gonna function.
So the front entrance is where the arrow is right now. And with 100 degree of confidence, I can tell you that parents drop off and pick up. They usually run in and out in under 2 minutes in childcare. So this is exactly the entrance. This will be our front entrance. And so the parents will park their vehicle, run inside with their child, drop off a child, come outside and drive home or to work rather. And our staff will be parking them back.
And that doesn't conflict with the usage of other tenants if that's parking right in front of his space. So.
I'm just curious, is there a sidewalk there?
Yes.
There's a sidewalk to the entrance of the,
No, in front of the cars. I guess my thought was that, you know, you get the child out of the car, you have to walk into the traffic aisle to get to the sidewalk, correct?
You really don't have to walk into a traffic aisle because you park, you literally get the child out of the car and you walk into the sidewalk immediately. So you don't really cross any traffic unless you park right, you know, on the other side. But this is how we operate right now.
If a car is parked, I think you're asking, if a car is parked in the stall that you're showing right at the end of the sidewalk, just a concern about pedestrian access to your sidewalk with another parent's has dropped their kid off, and there's a car parked there.
I'm sorry, I don't.
yeah, I mean, you're probably technically correct, but this has probably been the situation for most every daycare that we've approved. I don't think we've required like a sidewalk throughout the site. So it hasn't, I understand where you're coming from, but we haven't required that for any other development. You're saying maybe we have a sidewalk, additional sidewalk put in? Oh, you're talking about the middle one there.
Yep, right there.
Yeah. I think that's a striped
Not a
area for
stall.
the handicap.
Yeah, it's in between.
That's a
two
striped area for the
handicaps.
handicap, so nobody can park there anyway.
Right.
Because you have a loading zone for that handicap stall on each side.
It seems okay.
Yeah.
There's a walkway between two handicap spots, which are usually empty anyways, and we don't require it in any other daycare facilities, so surely want to be consistent. Thank you for that.
Well, it'll be striped off. I guess you can't stop any from parking where there shouldn't be parking, but it should be striped where they wouldn't be able to park there.
Thank you. Good comments. Any additional comments from the commission?
And move for approval based on staff's comments?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None were opposed, so that would be accepted. Congratulations, and we'll see you when you open. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next item, Mr. Dennis Thornton for Vital Care. The applicant is seeking a conditional use grant approval to allow for a compounding pharmacy for the property located at 12308 North Corporate Parkway. This is also a public hearing item.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 None were opposed, so all in favor, well, everyone said aye, so we are now in public hearing. Did anyone register to speak? None?
Move to close public hearing.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are now out of public hearing, and we will turn it over to Natalie, who will give us a staff report.
This request is for conditional use grant approval for a compounding pharmacy, Vital Care. It's located at 12308 North Corporate Parkway, so it's actually the same location as the previously discussed project. This is zoned B4, which allows for pharmacies as a conditional use. Vital Care offers home infusion pharmacy services and operates as a closed-door pharmacy, so treatments are provided and administered typically at home rather than in-site, but in-suite infusions are offered and scheduled in advance, which results in minimal foot traffic. The business plans on employing 5 full-time employees. The business hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, so it's compatible with the surrounding B4 uses. And it poses the same parking issues discussed by Jack, but again, given that it's not a walk-in pharmacy and those who are coming on site for the infusions will have an appointment, we're not concerned about parking being an issue. So with that being said, staff's recommending approval of Vital Care Pharmacy.
Thank you, Natalie. We'll go over to the applicant. Hi, good evening. Can you just introduce yourselves and tell us about your project?
Yes, I'm Dennis Thornton. I'm a real estate broker representing the owner of the business here, Bob.
I'm Bob Schwartz. My wife and kids and I are all Mequon residents, and looking forward to opening our business in Mequon.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. Do you have any questions about staff approval or the staff conditions of approval, items 1 through 4? None? Okay. Great. Well, thanks again, and we'll bring it back up to the commission. All right. It seems like there's no questions, so
Move for approval based on staff's comments.
Second.
thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None were opposed, so the motion is approved. Congratulations and welcome. Thank you for your investment.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the site plan. I know, that would be
All right.
convenient.
Moving along, we are on item
The
D
scrolling is not the most
of the
efficient.
public hearing. And I'll just kind of walk slow, or talk this slow, just so people can exit the room. And again, this is Cardinal Equipment and Event Rentals LLC. The applicant is seeking conditional use grant and building and site plan amendment approval to allow for a commercial use of a historically significant structure, including office and warehousing, for the property located at 7426 West Donges Bay Road. Again, we have Natalie from staff doing the presentation, but first, this is a public hearing item, so we'll take a motion.
Move to go into public hearing.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 None opposed, or I'm sorry, yep, none opposed. Was anyone registered to speak, Robin? No one was registered to speak.
Move to close public hearing.
We have a motion and a second. Please, all in favor, please say aye.
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 None were opposed. We are now out of public hearing and looking forward to Natalie's report on this item.
This request is for conditional use grant and building and site plan amendment approval to allow for a rental resource company supplying equipment and event rentals materials. This is located at 7426 West Donges Bay. It's zoned B7, which allows for the commercial use of a historic structure as a conditional use. And this site is the former Sunnyside School, which was designated a local landmark in 1996. It was previously Cherubini Enterprises, which was a wheelchair sales and rental business. The applicant is not proposing any changes to the building. They will be using the existing asphalt driveways, which are non-conforming, but staff doesn't see an issue with this. The site plan lays out where the parking will be, so the west side of the lot will be for employee parking, and the east side will be for customer parking. It's flipped on the labeling of the site plan, but I confirmed with the applicant that it'll be the opposite of what's labeled. The site plan accounts for the total parking requirement. That includes 1 space per employee for the work shift with the largest number of employees, and 1 space per customer at the peak anticipated customer demand. Staff is recommending that the parking lot be seal coated and striped to bring it into compliance with city standards. There's some site pictures within the packet that kind of just show there's some cracks in the existing parking lot, so that's why we are recommending that. The applicant is also proposing outdoor storage. I would say that's the most notable aspect of this project because outdoor storage is typically not allowed in this zone, but due to the industrial nature of the adjacent uses and secret garden landscaping is kind of kitty corner across the street, which also allows for outdoor storage and was approved for that. Staff doesn't see it being an issue. The site is also well screened with existing landscaping that's not easy to tell how it will be screened in the winter, but in the summer, you know, once that foliage is grown out, it should provide sufficient screening. The equipment will be stored on an asphalt lot that's shown on the site plan that will be installed to the rear of the building. It'll include trailers, excavators, some smaller contracting and yard tools. The applicant is also planning on installing a fence in front of the customer parking area, so that will help further screen the outdoor storage that will be behind it. They are also proposing to plant some mulch beds in front of the fence to kind of help aid in screening the outdoor storage and softening that view of the fence. Staff is supportive of that and also recommending that the mulch beds extend along the east side of the building, kind of to draw everything together and enhance connectivity. In terms of conditions, we are recommending that they submit the landscaping plan to staff for approval, and the 15 by 30 concrete pad that's shown on the site plan also won't be existing in the plan. We confirmed that with the applicant. The hours of operation are 8 to 5:30 on weekdays and 8:30 to 1 on Saturdays. The applicant did propose earlier pickup times on weekdays starting at 7:30. We're a little concerned about that causing noise disturbances for some of the residential properties nearby, so we're recommending that that pickup time be restricted to simply business hours. And with all that being said, we are recommending approval of the conditional use grant.
Thanks, Natalie. Can you just clarify the outside storage was where? And is it's screened?
Yeah, so it's the area that Jack's outlining now. That's not currently existing, so that would be asphalt that will be installed, and then the screening is kind of that scalloped area that's seen on the site plan, which it's
Thank you.
fairly, yeah.
Great. Let's turn it over to the applicant. If you could both introduce yourselves. There's 14 conditions of approval. Just want to make sure you're good with them, or if you need us to discuss any of them further.
Yeah, my name's Rick Hargarten with MSI General.
I'm Colin Shane, the applicant.
Welcome. We're glad to have you. And do you have any comments on?
I think we're good with pretty much everything that Natalie had laid out. The one question I just wanted some clarity on, if he wanted to extend some of that with gravel temporarily, if you go back to the last slide, where he proposes to store equipment, would we be okay extending that with gravel temporarily to give him time to start up his business and then expand that asphalt later on in order to store equipment in that area? Because originally we had kind of proposed to kind of run gravel in there, and they kind of came back with they want that all to be asphalt from a parking standpoint. I just guess I
And
wanted a
that's
little
at
bit
the
of
end
clarity
of
on
the
that.
asphalt is at the end of the project, you're saying? So you want to open up sooner, and that's why you want to
Well,
use it?
originally we had kind of proposed for that to be gravel, and then they came back saying that in the engineering report, a gravel parking area is not permitted by code.
Okay, maybe our engineer could comment on if we could have like you said it would be temporary?
Well,
Or-
again, he's just starting up his business. I don't want to speak for him, but he's trying to get up and get going. And
Okay.
from a cost standpoint, we could maybe just do that as gravel.
Okay, we just need to understand what you're asking for and if it's permanent or temporary and so on. So here's our engineer.
Yeah, the language we laid out in the report was actually just a reiteration of our ordinances just for commercial properties. It is required to have a concrete or asphalt surface.
Okay.
So it'd be kind of up to zoning staff if that was a interim measure or not, and some sort of deadline.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think more so it'd maybe be dependent on how long the gravel would anticipated to be used there instead of the asphalt, or if there's, you know, a certain timeline you guys would be looking at.
Okay, and if anything, maybe we can just look at the amount of asphalt we want to put in.
So how is what you're saying different than how the staff report is written?
I'm looking at it from the standpoint of is there a way to, like I said, do parking or storage there temporarily, and then if we can come up with a date later on, once he's in, to then extend that asphalt. Is that a possibility, or?
I can't say I fully understand what you're saying, and I don't like, you know, redoing staff's recommendation on the fly, but why don't we bring it back up here to get some commentary from the commission, and then we'll get right back to you, okay?
Okay.
So Commissioner Chorin.
Actually, that was something I was gonna bring up, because if you look at the site plan, it says traffic bond, gravel. And the staff had said asphalt, so, I mean, that's where the difference is.
Yep.
So I guess it's a matter of, would we accept it being the traffic bond gravel for a period of time until you get your business going, and then convert it to asphalt? And I don't know what would be an appropriate time. I mean, a year? I don't know. It's
Again,
up to
correct,
the
that's what I'm asking. Again, I'm just trying to look at giving my clients some time, but again, that's how it was presented, was traffic bond, and they came back with asphalt. If we have to do asphalt, I'm absolutely fine with that. That's not how we had presented it, so I just wanted clarity, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Your time, you think would be sufficient?
I mean, the biggest thing to me is more so I had developed a plan factoring for growth over the next few years. For what the cost of asphalt is, I'd have to restrict it in the immediate term to only handle the parking that I need right now, which would kind of be that western side at the moment, and then hold off on everything else at the moment. Then as I grow, then I'd have to reassess to come back for additional asphalt and follow whatever procedures are within the city here. It's just to do all that in asphalt versus TP, as you guys can imagine, is a significant cost difference. So,
It's kind of hard to imagine doing it for more than we really create an inconsistency with other approvals we've done for new construction. So to do anything longer than 6 or 12 months, and then I would think, you know, the cost of asphalt's not going, I mean, you guys haven't seen it going down. It's only going to go up over time, and
Correct.
you're going to be putting in, you know, like the ground asphalt. You're basically talking about two different surfaces, which would make your overall project cost larger. So if you don't need the land, I guess I would just don't pave it now, and you'll come back later on. And for sure, we always support growing businesses, and
yeah, and that's all we would end up doing, like I said.
yeah,
is
let's
we
keep
would
it
restrict
green.
it versus
It's
what we had.
I think we tried to kind of accommodate everything else. I would also say if like the hours of operation become, you know, because I do realize contractors will want to get there early, so I understand that 8 o'clock might be a little bit late in the contractor world, which perhaps Mr. Stoker wants to comment on. But you know, you can't have trucks backing up at the beeping in the residences. So my point is, this is a conditional use, and you can come back and ask for all this to be modified.
Okay.
And as long as you're in compliance, we'll work with you almost every time. So,
Yeah, I think a couple of us just had different interpretations of what that meant, so I think we're
Okay.
good. Thank you.
all right, thanks. So we were just trying to understand the ask, and we're all excited about the business. Were there any other concerns with the staff conditions? Okay, Commissioner Barnes?
Yeah, just a minor question here. I support what you're trying to do and get started and so forth, encourage that. I'm looking at it as a, you know, the history school, the old school, which is very appealing for that location. And so just wanted to, if you could repeat or elaborate any little bit about is that a decorative stone with some plantings in the front immediately east? Is it to the east of the existing building? I'm looking for some adequate screening
Yeah,
for the with that building, and recognizing the area, and it's continuing to change, that it be appropriately screened from public street.
It sounded like there was going to be screening. Are you not seeing screening?
Well, I guess I'm not real clear what the extent of the screening is, and is that just kind of a?
So the screening.
Is it going to actually, you know, so you won't be able to see equipment?
That's the idea. The combination of the fence in front of the asphalt there with I mean, there are 3 trees there currently that are, I don't know, do you remember how big they are?
About probably 12 foot tall or so.
Pretty decent sized trees, and we didn't fill with landscaping, so the fence view from the road as you drive by would be screened with the combination of fencing and landscaping.
I'm putting that then to staff as far as, is it sufficient for screening?
Yeah, I would say most of the outdoor storage will probably be hidden behind the building just because of the nature of the site. So the fence will add the additional screening for, you know, kind of that right side of the site, and the planted beds will have, you know, a certain height of plant. That's kind of why we're recommending that they submit an updated plan before going forward with the landscaping, so that staff can make sure it's a sufficient height and design so that it screens additionally with that fence for, you know, whatever isn't covered by that building screening.
There's a picture of the fence on page 73 of the packet. Great. Other commentary? Commissioner Urbani.
First, welcome. Thank you. Since my husband and I used to find ourselves at Suburban Rental in Thiensville quite regularly and randomly, and it's been really challenging when they shut down. So thank you for opening this. And I have a couple questions. Natalie, you had said the customer parking and the employee parking is actually switched from how the packet is?
Yeah, it's going to be employee parking on the west side and customer parking on the east side.
So the customer parking will be behind the fence? You have to go through the gate?
Yes,
behind the
the
fence.
applicant stated that they're going to have the gate open during business hours and locked when the business closes to protect the outdoor storage.
Okay, and at some point there will be signage directing customers, because that would be opposite of where I would expect to go as a customer, is through the gate?
Correct, yeah. We'll
Okay.
have,
Yeah,
we'll have,
there's-
signage that there's already 2 existing that are there. We're just flip-flopping from the previous tenant. They had it that their customer side was, and we're doing the flip-flop, mainly because it's just interior of the building. The back side there is where the showroom is, or what we can use for a showroom space. So rather than them having to walk across what will become like the mechanic shop area, I want them to have the quickest access to get right into the showroom, that they're not going across things that could be a trip hazard.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you. And then in the staff report, it said they were not allowed to have that concrete pad, and I know you said they weren't planning to have it. Is it not allowed, or they don't want it anymore?
It's on a staff level, we decided it wasn't allowed, and the applicant was okay with that and said they'll just have it, you know, use the existing asphalt that's already in the parking area.
Yeah, you don't really need to return things there if that's
Right.
where you have to park anyway as the customer. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. You got one customer. Other comments? Commissioner Stoker. No, sir.
In the interest of clarification of the last point, in an attempt to make a motion here, so you would be okay leaving the proposed asphalt as green space right now, no asphalt or no gravel, just leaving it green? I just want to confirm that A, you're okay with that, and B, if you do that, we're not gonna go by and see stuff being stored on the grass.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And the second part of the question is, what I'm trying to do is make you approval that if and when you need the storage, that we are determining it's going to be asphalt per this, or are we gonna try and give you 6 months leeway? And that's why I'm struggling to, when would you foresee needing that storage space? Are we talking I'm trying to prevent you from having to come back in front of the planning commission.
We're probably talking realistically for the full amount, probably year 4 is probably really where it is at that point. So year 1 and 2, like I say, that if you kind of consider north, south, east, west, that western side is more than sufficient for everything that we can accumulate for the first couple of years under our financing.
So for fellow commissioners, what I'm trying to get at, and I'm glad he answered it the way he did, is do we approve it per staff's recommendations, keeping it green with nothing stored on it, and then at such time that he needs to start using it for storage, we'll allow him 6 months or 1 year, but as soon as he has stone down, within a year, it has to be paved. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Which, I understand that, but then you said now the storage will be, the equipment storage will be in that employee parking area, which is in front of the building?
No, I would just be looking to do asphalt initially on that western side, coming kind of straight up to the north.
Okay, just a segment.
So it's just a much smaller segment right now type scenario, and then that would be it at the moment.
I'm also gonna ask staff, do you have any huge objections to 12 months of stone? Am I going against some code?
But it's
before
4
I
years,
do this.
it's 4 years out. Like, it will be stoned for 3 years. Okay.
As soon as stone's down, they have 12 months to have asphalt. That's what I was proposing.
I guess, I mean, I would, like, if they're looking for approval to do this now, I would give them like 9 months or 8 months, because, you know, November's gonna come and then you're not gonna be able to do it anyway, so I would give. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to avoid that. I guess I would frame the motion, I guess, as there's 3 things we have to determine. Number 1 is the extent of the current proposed outdoor storage. What they're saying, you're looking at a smaller amount, and we have to decide whether we wanna do that as temporarily stone, or we're gonna require that to be asphalt. And then, as long as, I guess the other condition would be, as long as they don't exceed the footprint of this in the future, then they could do that without coming back. I mean, typically we would, if they did half of this now, and then in 2 years they came back and said we wanna do the other half, we would run that through our chair, which is the mayor, and say, do we wanna take this back, or do we wanna handle it at staff level? And I think, seeing as we've seen it already today, we probably would just handle that at a staff level, so. I guess the question you have to decide is whether we wanna allow any type of short-term stone versus asphalt.
I think it's a waste of money, but you can plan around the seasons. But if you want to put the money in to tear out the grass and put the stone down, so that you can then 8 months later put asphalt over it, whatever we can do to support you, I just don't know that.
Well, there's gonna have to be a base under that asphalt anyway. I'm assuming it may not be the same
Not
level,
all
but.
waste. You're right. So, but anyone can make a motion, and we certainly are supportive of the use and most aspects of this plan.
Sorry. Timing-wise, I want to cut this off. I mean, I don't want this to be an open question 7 years down the road, because we may have all new planning commissioners and staff, and things kind of get forgotten. So, you know, from my perspective, I'd like to see it completed within 4 years, then, if you're going to do it. Otherwise, it would have to come back.
Yeah, and that would be reasonable. I mean, obviously, everything is with the, projection of what we hope for growth. Now, obviously, if everything goes to heck in the next couple of years, that everything changes. But yeah, that's our anticipated that we were building, or when I designed it with the group here at MSI, it was looking at kind of not just what do you need immediately, but what are you looking at over the next few years. So it's just financially, for us, we just have to look at what can we put asphalt in for the immediate term, and then we can look at doing the remainder of it later as we do have that growth and that financial security coming in.
All right, well, I will make an attempt at a motion here. I motion to approve per staff's recommendations, with the exception of the, I gotta figure out which number that was on the.
looking?
I want to say 10, I believe.
Changing item number 10 to allow for the applicant to put a stone base down when they need to use the space for a period of up to 9 months, at which point it must become asphalt. By the ninth month, it must become asphalt. And they have this leeway to do this until 4 years from this grant being approved.
That's good, in accordance with the plan shown.
I'll second the
Yes.
motion.
That was
And if
terrific.
staff thinks that we need to add anything else, please
Yeah,
jump
well,
in
let's
here.
have a little further discussion.
Yeah, go
Commissioner
ahead.
Chorin.
Commissioner Parrish brought up or somebody brought up the comment about the hours. What was the request and
Good question. The applicant, what,
Originally, I wanted to do a contractor pickup available at 7:30 in the morning instead of 8, just because especially coming in the summertime, they love to always start early. And the goal or caveat for my contractors was they'd have to book by 3 o'clock the night before, so we could fire up, preload all the equipment, and then all essentially they'd be coming in for is us loading onto their truck or connecting their truck to a trailer. Is what we were hoping to do during the weekdays for them.
so I guess my friendly amendment would be to allow them to open at 7:30 rather than the staff recommended 8 o'clock. On weekdays.
I would accept the friendly motion.
I don't want to
Staff.
take away your momentum on this one, but the concern I guess I have is that we don't typically regulate through like a permit when they would go on to phase 2 or phase 3 with this stone versus asphalt, so it's gonna be very difficult for us to manage that and even understand where they're at in their time frame. So I guess I would just recommend that we would look at just proving what they currently need for storage area and giving them the leeway for the stone to the asphalt for that, and then any future expansion of that area, then we would handle at a staff level and make a determination at that time.
I would be fine amending to that as well. Would you be okay with that? All right, so we'll amend to allowing you to start any storage that you need now as stone for up to 9 months. And then at which time you want to expand further, you would have to go back through staff. And also to change the hours till 7:30 as opposed to 8. Weekdays.
great. Great, Commissioner Stoker accepted it. Commissioner Barnes accepted that as well. And so we will now, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None were opposed. Congratulations and welcome to Mequon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, moving along. We are on the North Shore Dance Studio of the public hearing. The applicant is seeking conditional use grant amendment and building and site plan amendment approval to allow for an addition to the existing building for the property located at 10433 North Bear Road. This is a public hearing item.
Move to go into public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Was anyone registered to speak? No one else is here for this item.
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close public hearing, and we will turn this over to Natalie from staff for a staff report.
Okay, this request is for conditional use grant amendment and building and site plan amendment to allow for an addition to the existing structure located at 10433 North Bear Road. Site is zoned B5. North Shore Dance Studio was previously approved for a conditional use grant in June of 2018, so they've been operating here ever since. Because the business is expanding its operations, that requires an amendment to the conditional use grant along with the building and site plan amendment to account for the proposed building addition. This is kind of because there's a growing demand for more clientele, and this addition will allow for additional studio space that can allow for private lessons and more one-on-one sessions for students. The addition will be built of the material seen up here. It's decorative masonry units that will match the existing building. The addition will not have windows, and this is done to prevent light trespass from passing vehicles and to allow for internal lighting to be utilized to enhance performances and dances in the space. We did conduct a site visit and concluded that this isn't out of character with the surrounding uses because the area is industrial and the current side of the building that the addition is proposed on doesn't have windows. It won't be out of character of what's already existing there. So staff does not have a problem with no windows on the addition. The addition will add roughly 4,000 square feet to the existing 7,500 square foot building. The addition will continue to meet the 20-foot offset requirement. Also to note, when the original building was constructed, the setback along Executive Drive was 50 feet. It's now 60 feet. So to account for that, the applicant is going to average the two setbacks to determine the position of the new addition, and that's pulled from section 58.416D of City of Mequon Code. The applicant is adding an additional 12 parking spaces, which will account for the additional students that will be on site. This does meet the industry standard that was set in the previous conditional use grant approval of this project. In terms of landscaping, the City of Mequon Code requires that 10% of the interior parking area be landscaped when there's 10 or more stalls. There's a total of 34 stalls with the additional 12. The applicant is proposing 9% of the interior parking lot to be landscaped, and staff is okay with allowing for this 1% deficiency because the updated plan does reduce the overall amount of paving and eliminates the previous truck turnaround area. So it's going to look like more landscaping with less pavement, which we are in support of. Staff is recommending that the evergreens proposed in the plan be a minimum of 7 feet in height. That is different than what the applicant submitted, but this is something that's been a precedent in past projects and will kind of just aid in screening the different parking areas of this current site. In terms of lighting, the lights selected don't appear to be compliant with City of Mequon Code, as they don't appear to be full cutoff, which is a requirement. We also conducted a staff visit and saw that there's 2 lights on site that appear to be similar to the proposed lights and likely not full cutoff. So staff is recommending that the selected features the applicant selects match one of the compliant existing lights at the site. We're also requiring that the applicant submit an updated lighting plan that shows the light trespass so that we can confirm on a staff level that it will meet the City of Mequon Code. The hours of operation are going to remain the same. Otherwise, the business is going to be operating the same as it has since 2018, same business functions. So with that being said, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use grant and building and site plan amendment.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to the applicant. If you could please introduce yourselves.
Good evening. My name is Katie Holtzen. I've been the owner of North Shore Dance Studio for the past 19 years.
I'm Peter Ogorek, architect with Perspective Design.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for expanding and your proposal this evening. Do you have any questions for us that you would like us to discuss further? There's 11 conditions of approval from staff.
None for me.
Okay. Thank you again for coming forth. Commissioner Choran?
I guess
Great.
I can make a motion for approval based on staff's comments.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 None were opposed, so this will be accepted and approved. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You. All right. We are now moving out of the public hearing and into section 4, regular business. The next applicant is Lemberg Electric for Chase Bank. The applicant is seeking minor request approval for a sign waiver for the property located at 11001 North Port Washington Road. We have Natalie on the staff report, and then we'll get an introduction in a moment here.
So this request is for 2 sign waivers to allow for an additional wall sign on the north elevation, which will be that lower elevation shown on the screen, and a larger wall sign on the east elevation, which is the upper half of the screen. This is for the property located at 11001 North Port Washington Road, and Chase Bank was approved for building and site plan amendment at this property back in October of 2024. So in terms of the north elevation wall sign, sign code typically allows for one wall sign per building unless the building faces two public streets, in which case the code allows for one wall sign facing each public street. In this case, the Chase Bank does face two streets. It faces Port Washington, which is the east elevation, and it faces Town Square Road, which is the north elevation. Town Square Road is a private street, so the additional wall sign proposed does require the sign waiver. The sign, as you can see, will just read Chase and be followed by the logo there. Staff is supportive of the sign waiver for the north elevation, as it's abutting a street and it'll allow those driving along Town Square Road to more easily identify the building. In terms of the east elevation wall sign, this would be permitted at 26.25 square feet. That's per City of Mequon code. The applicant is requesting for a larger sign here to match the size of the north elevation wall sign at 29.7 square feet. Though both read Chase, they have the same design. Staff is not supportive of the larger wall sign for the east elevation, just because it's a fairly minor larger sign and would set a certain precedent, so we don't find that there's visual justification to need a larger sign on that east elevation. We did request from Chase that they develop a rendering that kind of showed what that compliant size would look like, just for comparison purposes, but that was not provided. So staff is recommending approval of the north elevation wall sign and is not recommending approval of a larger east elevation wall sign.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to the applicant. If you could state your name.
Hi, I am Jana Westfall, the project manager for Lemberg Electric, working on behalf of our national customer, working on behalf of Chase.
Thank you for being here. Obviously, you heard staff's report. The applicant didn't quite get what they were asking for, but we were concerned about the inconsistency. Did you want to touch on that any further, or is the applicant okay with our conditions of approval at this point?
Sure, just a few notes. First of all, thank you, Natalie, for working so well with us. Second is thank you to you guys for being here and listening to the application and the variance, I'll say. In addition to the just justification for the larger sign on the north elevation is this is a Chase industry standard. They do have a manufacturing and fabrication process. Throughout, Lemberg has done many Chase banks throughout the southeastern region of Wisconsin, and they all are pretty standard at this 29 point something square footage. This is more just industry standard for Chase, and that is kind of our recommendation based on working with our national customers and working with Chase Bank so often.
Thank you. We'll bring it back up to the Planning Commission. Just a reminder, so Market Street is it's a private road, and so that's why, in many ways, staff is, the city is giving a concession by allowing a full-size sign on that road. And then it sounds like there were some requests made by staff just for seeing what it would look like in visual, and didn't quite make it in, or they were declined.
Yes,
Okay.
they did not. Our national customer did not provide a smaller square footage size due to they need a written justification and a denial before they proceed with a smaller rendering of the sign.
Commissioner Chorin.
Jack, the reason the sign on Market Street is allowed to be larger is because of this surface area?
Yeah, the requirement is 2.5% of the building wall area that it's affixed on. So because the north elevation building side is larger, they're allowed to have that larger square footage there.
Do we have any sense what the smaller sign on the east dimensionally would be?
It would be, on the east side, it would be 26.25 square feet. So it's 3 square feet different. Roughly. 29.7 square feet. Two five.
Mhm. Understood. Mhm.
Plus, I could even argue that where the sign is on the east elevation is where it's located is a smaller kind of focal point. So to me, I feel like it can get a little smaller size. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner Stoker. Commissioner Urbani.
I agree with that opinion. I think a larger sign on that east elevation would look out of balance. And honestly, knowing this site and driving Port Washington Road regularly, the sign on the north elevation will be more important for passing traffic anyway. It'll be honestly very visible for anybody traveling southbound, certainly. And it'll be more visible, honestly, to traffic.
Yeah, I think we're working towards a motion here. Any final commentary before we
No,
move?
completely understand. I did mention
We
this
have
to
an impossible task here to convince us to create an inconsistency.
The mere 3 feet. No, I
Yeah.
completely understand the mention. I did. Our national customer and I do understand that it is a larger feet. Just the 3 feet is still a lot. So we do thank you for the time consideration, and I will respond back to our national customer to kind of remedy the situation.
Thank you for your professional approach, and at this time, I think we'll.
Then I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Let the record show that none were opposed, and so we have accepted or we have approved subject to staff's conditions 1 through 3. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, we are now on our final item of the evening. This is a policy matter. Director Tollefson is going to walk us through. This is an amendment to Chapter 58, City of Mequon Zoning Code, related to Section 58-416, Building and Structural Location, Setbacks, and related to setback from Lake Michigan Bluff. I think we'll have a staff report. Alderman Bach is here in the event he wants to say a few words, and then we'll bring it back up here. The committee of the whole of the Common Council is looking for a recommendation from this body so people could have access to the lake if their bluff is safe. So it sounds like Mr. Golden is here to walk us through this.
Yep, and of course we saved the best one for last, so this
Sure did, thank you.
This will be great. All right, so a little background, you kind of touched on it. Back in August of 2024, the Common Council Committee of the Whole directed staff to author some code language that would allow property owners along the Lake Michigan Bluff the ability to access the lake. We're not going to go through this whole analysis that we did. We'll just kind of touch on I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. What we found in our analysis of the bluff is that it's pretty unstable in Mequon. There's a lot of information in the packet that shows the studies that we looked at, and that it's really bad. I mean, it's sand basically. So what we did is we kind of looked at our neighboring communities, specifically Fox Point, Whitefish Bay. Fox Point does not allow structures on their bluff. Whitefish Bay does. So we kind of looked at their code in our analysis. We also have the issue that there really isn't a building code that would apply to these structures, because building codes apply to buildings, not structures that go down a bluff. So all of that analysis is in the report here. But basically what it comes down to is based on the direction of the committee of the whole, we drafted the text amendment, which you'll see in attachment 8. We kind of stated in there that, you know, the building of any structure on the bluff is going to come with inherent risks. This proposed text amendment that we drafted kind of places a lot of the responsibility of the design, the construction, the safety on a professional engineer and the property owner. We put some limitations in there to size, height, location of these structures. We also addressed the possible maintenance of these structures should they fall into disrepair or become a visual nuisance or potential debris for the Great Lakes. We also routed our text amendment to in departments that might be impacted by this: the police department, the fire department, our engineering department here at Mequon. Most of the response was not really any issue. The fire department did state that obviously we would have probably some longer response times if there were to be an incident at the bottom of one of these structures down by the lake. We also reached out to the DNR. I have not heard, well, as of the printing of this, we didn't hear back. I did actually get an email back from the DNR on Monday with the note saying, hey, we got your email, we're gonna get back to you when we can. So they did give it to another person contact, so I'm still waiting to hear back, because one of the things that's a little gray is the termination of these structures that we're going to permit at the ordinary high water mark, because we have control up to that point. From the ordinary high water mark, the DNR is in control. So still a little unclear as to how we would end it, which is kind of why in the one of the points in the amendment is that they need to adhere to any federal regulations that might be out there.
So it does go down, they can only go to the high water mark, or they can go below it?
Well, that's a question for the DNR, which is what we're waiting to hear back from. So that's the blanket coverage of that, is that they need to they would need to comply with any federal or Department of Natural Resource regulations when it comes to landing. I mean, we do, everyone knows about the Vermont Park one. When you go to that one, their termination is appears to be a ship's ladder that may be retractable. Again, I'm not sure why they did that way, but that's how they did that, and I imagine there might have been something they knew.
Yep. The other question, the comment was about Vermont Park, and Common Council worked with staff to submit a letter to the county, is my understanding, to make sure that stays to code, because we don't monitor Vermont Park, correct?
We do not.
That's their own entity to take care of it, and the city expressed concern that they stay on top of its maintenance and upkeep, because they operate outside of our realm. And then for the really colorful map on the screen, which is a helpful map to see, I mean, roughly half the bluff is red, so does the proposed ordinance say that anything red would automatically be excluded, or is it theoretically covered?
Nope. So when we say we're relying heavily on engineering, it's pretty clear in the drafted amendment that we wrote. An engineer is going to need to basically stamp these plans saying we're not going to disrupt the bluff, we're not going to make it better or worse, and it kind of relieves the city of any liability in this matter, because the other thing is we're only going to give them a permit that we're going to check for location. We're not inspecting the stairs, we're not inspecting anything that's built other than the location of where it's built, and then it's on the homeowner and their contractor to supply us with all the information that we are requiring, which would also get recorded with the county.
Okay.
So just to wrap up a little bit, we did get an email today from Alderman Bach with some concerns from the contractor that would like to build structures similar to Vermont Park. He's a little concerned about the 4.5-foot height restriction, and our intent was not to limit that height to the overall be 4.5 feet, because if you look at the way that structure was built at Vermont Park, the staircase itself is under 4.5 feet, but there's support structure in these skid designs that would exceed that height limit, and our intent is to not include that height. So we're going to be looking at the language over the next week or so to see if we need to finesse that a little bit, to make sure that something similar to what's at Vermont Park may fall into this this text amendment.
Great. Any other commentary? This was a lot of work by staff that wasn't on your agenda before council put it on your agenda. So thank you for embracing the project. I know Alderman Bach has some additional comments, and then Planning Commission should deliberate a little bit, and then we'll decide what to do. Alderman Bach.
Yeah, thank you. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
We're here.
You're here, yes. So just a little background on how we got to this. Staff has been wonderful, and you know, I've learned more about bluff structures than I ever wanted to over the last year and a half. We've been talking about this, but this came because of residents on the lakeshore, at least 2 in District 5 and 1, I think, maybe in District 8. You know, one resident came all the way to I think the Board of Appeals. And basically what they are talking about here are these floating staircases like Vermont. And so, as was mentioned, I mean, the staircase is considered a structure under the current code. And so throughout this process, there was a little bit confusion on the definition of the structure. And I believe this code, the last time we really looked at this was, what, 1988, 1974, somewhere around there, if I remember. So because it came to these boards, it thought, hey, maybe we can kind of relook at this, because this floating staircase is kind of a newer technology. And as he mentioned, it's allowed in many other lakeshore communities: Port Washington, Grafton, Whitefish Bay, Two Rivers, Two Creeks, Manitowoc, Michigan. And so some of this technology has been around for 15 years. You know, an annual maintenance is required. There has been, you know, at least what I've learned is no kind of damage to the bluff. And Greg was right. I mean, you can't. So what they do on these floating staircases with residences, because the beach is actually public property, at the end of the floating staircase, they kind of fold it up. You know, so the resident has to kind of fold that up, so it's actually not touching that's at least what I've been able to find out. We'll find out for sure. And so, and you know, and people were looking at the Vermont Park staircase. So these are the residents along there, and that Vermont Park bluff is considered, you know, kind of in that unstable area too. So the gentleman who I've at least interviewed, you know, that's kind of the beauty of this technology. Says that it doesn't damage the bluff, and you do have to kind of tighten the cables periodically, or every year, or as the bluff moves. But you know, the goal is to put the liability on the resident rather than the city. So I appreciate the good time that you put into looking at this code, and we may have to do a little bit of adjustment on the language. But that's a little bit of the background on where this came from.
Plead ignorance. What's a floating stair? How does it work?
So it's they install, you know, maybe you can help me a little bit more, but it's cables. So they put these cables in, and you know, if you go on these stairs, it's kind of built with cables. So you're walking down these stairs, and the cables are put into the bluff, and you can tighten the cables. It's, you know, it's interesting. You might want to go over there, Marty, and go walking out down Vermont. I'll go with you, and you can kind of see it. It's an interesting walk.
Bikes.
Yeah.
So the cables are actually mounted. I mean, they're buried into the ground, probably a good 100 feet away from the bluff, and then they're buried underground, and then they emerge as the bluff drops off. And I mean, it's quite interesting. It's kind of a spider web of cables. You know, one concern we would have is sometimes, you know, even at Vermont Park, we're starting to see these cables are kind of eroding, the ground's eroding, and all of a sudden they're becoming visible and possibly trip hazards. That would be one of our concerns. But yeah, the cables are actually mounted way back. And then, like I said, they just go over and they hook up to this thing, and the entire staircase is sitting on skids, and where the platforms and the stairs meet, they're kind of on pivots. So should something give way, the stairs should remain intact, but it, it would need to be addressed almost immediately because the stairs would become unsafe at that point, until I'm assuming these cables would get tightened and make up for it. Again, I am not an engineer. I'm in awe of what they built there. I'm just also not convinced that it would remain safe forever.
Great. Any other commentary, Alderman Bach?
No, that's where I'm at. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for being here and your leadership on the subject.
Yep.
Commissioner Stoker. What do you mean by you got it 5 minutes before? Okay. All right. I was just trying to understand. There's no timeline that council was trying to meet. I think it's just the building season's coming up, with summer upon us. So, and this is going to be an ordinance change. So there's going to be a couple of readings. So yeah, I mean, you're probably putting someone. But if you're saying you didn't, you're not comfortable, anyone can make a motion to table. But to answer your question, Alderman Bach.
The goal was, the problem is folks have been waiting on this for, I don't know, a year and a half. And so the city finally got around to taking a look at this. And the goal was that, the hope was to be able to do, people who were interested in this, to do the work this summer. So the plan was, I think, to come back to the committee of the whole meeting in April, and then kind of a first reading in May at the common council. Am I correct on that? Yeah.
Yep.
Something like that. And so that was what was kind of pushing this along.
Commissioner or Director Tollefson.
Thank you. I can just add a little bit to the schedule. We were planning to bring it forward for a first reading and the committee of the whole discussion in April, with the goal of having it approved in May, again because of construction season and utilizing the season for permitting and construction. But if this went in May for the first reading and the committee of the whole, we would still get it approved by June. So a slight delay, but it wasn't really intended to go to committee of the whole in April and then first reading in May and then second reading in June. So we'd be a month off from our original plan. Yeah.
I think council is relying on this body to have reviewed this, and it is a light turnout tonight, and so I think we need to respect your opinions, Commissioner Barnes.
I have to duplicate what you said. Same concern, just getting the package and not having read it.
Sure. Commissioner Urbani.
I did read it, and I have seen this bluff from the water, and it collapses all the time. There's big chunks that fall down right in front of your face. You can go from one day to the next and see trees down along the Donges Bay Gorge bluff, even with or without a storm. There's stuff changing every day. It is definitely not stable. It is very unstable. I would approve any language that strenuously placed all the responsibility on the engineer and the homeowner. And I am very curious what the DNR would have to say, because they're going to tear the bluff apart even more. And I would be very curious what all the other homeowners would have to say, because all of those properties were significantly affected by the Concordia install that is changing the way the water's hitting their own properties. And if somebody else, if a neighbor installed a new access way that also affected their property, what rights does the neighbor have if to be able to evaluate somebody else's install and say it's affecting my bluff and you're ruining my house is now 5 feet from the edge instead of 20.
That's the beauty of, that's why you have to learn a little.
Do you want to step up to the podium?
Yeah, the floating. You have to learn a little bit about the floating.
The public can't hear you.
How that is different and, than what you mentioned at Concordia. When you dig into it a little bit and you look at it, and we could even have the gentleman that's been doing this for 15 years come and answer some of those questions. He'd be happy to do that.
And
you
and
dig
I
into
did-
it a little bit, you'll learn a little that it's a little bit different, and he'll actually show you evidence on how that's actually improved the stability of the bluff on these systems. So, and again, you've got Vermont Park who did it, and it's there, and it was allowed. And so, now you've got your residents, Mequon residents, who cannot access their beach property, and they're wondering, hey,
Why not?
we've got a technology that's available, that's been proven. It's been used for 15 years without any of these problems. Because I too like the bluff. I took a kayak ride in the fall, early in the morning, just to kind of walk from Port Washington up the bluff. And you do see all of that. And there was an old structure there that was kind of a monorail structure in Grafton that's still there. It's not being used anymore. So, again, we talked a little bit about if a homeowner moves to, what's the responsibility of passing this on. So there were some questions there. But I do think once you dig into it and read the packet and learn a little bit about these floating stairwells, you'll see that there is a difference.
I have learned about floating stairwells. I was very curious about the Vermont install, and I talked a lot to Andrew Struck, I think is the county parks director, and about the ladder that flips down at the bottom, and partially in case of storm surge, not just for other people walking on the beach to have access, but and I am curious of how it's been doing so far. I took one look at that staircase and said I'll go on it the first fall and never again after a winter. I would love to hear an update of how it's doing.
Well, again, that's not the city's purview. That's why the city sent a letter to the county expressing concern that they stay on top of safety and federal code compliance. I think, again, the council or the commission here is asking really good questions. Some of these were addressed in the write-up, like when you really dig into it, but this is why council relies on you to vet this stuff before it gets to us, and so thank you for asking these questions. Commissioner Burns, did you have something you
Yeah,
want to say?
just this is a broad and general question in the context of what you've presented. I'll just say bluntly, are there any residential property owner lawsuits that involve the city of Mequon on questions of stability of slope? Because I know there are, like saying your red zones and so forth, I'm aware of some various legal issues going on and back and forth, and so my simple question is the city of Mequon at stake in any of this at this point?
Another good question, I think, assuming we may table this evening, I think maybe Attorney Sajak may want to attend the next meeting, because that's probably the biggest question of all is liability to the city and the commission, the council, etc. So, or at least he should listen to this recording and write a further legal analysis to address some of these comments. Any other comments? If not, we... Yep. Can you push the button? Push the button.
You're still waiting for a response from the DNR?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, historically, any work on the bluff that would involve land disturbing, that would be their authority. But with these cables, it may not be considered land disturbing. The other issue is the determination of the ordinary high water mark and what's our role versus their role. Now, as far as I understand it, that we have jurisdiction up to that ordinary high water mark. And beyond that, that's their jurisdiction. So the question is, if somebody wanted to provide one of these structures and then go beyond the ordinary high water mark, what would DNR's position be on that? Which is kind of interesting because that moves. I mean, the lake's levels go up and down significantly, so I don't know how they even classify where their ordinary high water mark is over time, because since I've been here, there have been places that have 100 feet of beach, and then the next couple years later, there's no beach. So that's, I guess that's the biggest question we have for them is what are they going to allow or not allow past that ordinary high water mark, and the Corps of Engineers as well.
Okay. So yeah, so more feedback coming from the
What's that?
DNR. So there's more feedback we're waiting on.
Yes.
About that ordinary high water mark question. Good.
I would make a motion to table, and hopefully at the next meeting, we could potentially have the city attorney. I'd love to have the expert on this product here to allow the commissioners to ask questions, but I would motion to table.
I'd like to second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Record show none were opposed. We have an approved motion to table, which is non-debatable. So we are moving on. Announcements. The next meeting is Monday, April 21st, 2025 at 6 p.m. And no further business. So we have a motion. Oh,
I do have one
there we are.
announcement.
Director Towson.
Thank you. On behalf of the city and particularly the development department, we want to congratulate our very own planning commissioner, John Stoker, president and founder of Victory Homes. He was named in February as the Builder of the Year by the Wisconsin Builders Association. So congratulations. We are very lucky to have you as a resident of Mequon, and thank you for the service that you provide to the community by serving on this board. Thank you.
What a nice comment. Yeah, you've been on this board, what, 10 plus years? Okay. Well, you're an excellent resident of Mequon and businessman. Thank you for that comment. Yep. Okay. So I don't think there's any other announcements. Did we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All right. And a second. All right. Everyone seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you and have a good evening, everyone.